The subway station thrummed with life, a constant churn of movement and noise. Electronic announcements crackled overhead, boots clacked against the tiled floor, and the metallic scent of steel and machinery filled the air. Commuters bustled about, eyes downcast, minds preoccupied with the destination rather than the journey. Among them was Elijah, a young man in his late 20s, his posture betraying the exhaustion of a long workday. He adjusted his backpack as he stepped onto the platform, shaking off the weight of grease and labor from his shift at the auto repair shop. His muscles ached, his hands bore the scars of hours spent tightening bolts and replacing tires, but there was no time to dwell on fatigue. Tonight was special. His little sister's birthday. He had promised he'd be home in time to celebrate. As the train screeched to a halt, its doors hissed open, spilling out a wave of passengers before swallowing up another. Elijah was among them, maneuvering through the crowd until he found a spot near the door, gripping the overhead bar for balance. The air inside the subway car was thick with the mingling scents of perfume, coffee, and the faint musk of too many bodies in too small a space. He exhaled slowly, closing his eyes for a moment, willing time to move just a little faster. He needed to make it home. His gaze drifted across the car, settling on a woman standing a few feet away. She was visibly pregnant, her rounded belly straining against her dress, one hand gripping a metal pole, the other clutching an oversized bag. Her face shone with perspiration, and her legs wobbled each time the train jerked forward. Without hesitation, Elijah shifted, rising to his seat. "You look like you could use this." The woman hesitated, her eyes flickering between him and the seat as if debating whether to accept. Eventually, gratitude softened her features. "Thank you so much," she murmured, sinking down onto the hard plastic bench with a relieved sigh. Elijah nodded, moving closer to the door, gripping a nearby pole. The subway rattled along the tracks, the rhythmic motion lulling him into a temporary sense of peace. He checked his watch. If the train stayed on schedule, he'd be home just in time. A small act of kindness, nothing more, yet he felt lighter knowing he'd done something good today. But peace was fleeting. The train lurched, and a sharp gasp cut through the murmur of conversation. Elijah turned his head just in time to see the pregnant woman's body slump forward, her bag slipping from her grasp, landing with a soft thud on the floor. A ripple of unease spread through the car as she collapsed onto her knees, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Someone shouted, "Help her!" Elijah moved instinctively, crouching beside her. "Ma'am, are you okay?" His voice was steady, but a knot of worry tightened in his chest. Passengers reacted in a flurry of movement. Someone reached for the emergency brake. Another fumbled for their phone to call 911. The air thickened with panic, voices rising in a cacophony of fear and confusion. Then the woman lifted her head, her eyes darting wildly before landing on Elijah. And then, with a breathless, strained voice, she said something that made the world tilt on its axis. "It was him," she gasped. He did something to me." For a moment, Elijah thought he'd misheard. The murmurs started low but spread like wildfire. Suspicion seeped into the air, turning warm concern into something colder, more dangerous. "What?" Elijah blinked, his heart pounding. "I didn't—" "He did something to me," she repeated, her voice louder now, cutting through the confusion like a blade. Elijah felt the shift immediately. The weight of 100 unspoken judgments pressing down on him. A man in a gray suit narrowed his eyes, stepping closer. "I saw him standing near her. What were you doing by her bag?" "I wasn't," Elijah protested, his voice rising slightly. "I was by the door the whole time." But it didn't matter. The seed had been planted. Whispers slithered through the crowd, speculation and fear twisting the story with every retelling. A woman with a stroller muttered, casting a wary glance his way. An older man subtly moved between Elijah and the woman on the floor, as if shielding her. Then, a voice from the back of the car shouted, "Someone call the police!" Elijah's stomach plummeted. "Why would you call the cops?" he demanded, frustration lacing his words. "I didn't do anything." The train screeched to a stop at the next station. The doors slid open, and 2 transit officers stepped onto the car, their presence adding weight to the already suffocating atmosphere. "What's going on here?" one of them asked, eyes scanning the tense faces surrounding them. Passengers spoke over each other, each trying to offer their version of events. She collapsed and he was right there, one woman said, nodding toward Elijah. He gave up his seat, but then, I don't know, something feels off. One of the officers turned to Elijah. Step off the train so we can sort this out. I didn't do anything, Elijah repeated, his voice firmer now. Ask anyone. We'll figure that out, the officer said. Let's go. Just as Elijah prepared to protest again, a voice rang out, Wait. A teenage girl near the back of the car stood up, holding her phone. I saw the whole thing. He didn't touch her. He literally just gave her his seat. Her words hung in the air, a single crack in the wall of suspicion, but doubt is not so easily dispelled. The pregnant woman groaned, clutching her stomach again. One of the officers crouched beside her. Ma'am, did someone harm you? She pointed at Elijah again, eyes wide with something that looked too much like fear. It was him. I felt dizzy after he stood so close. I don't know what he did, but it was him. Elijah's pulse roared in his ears. He wanted to yell, to demand why she was doing this, but he knew better. His father's voice echoed in his mind. Stay calm, no matter what. Don't give them a reason to see you as a threat. The officers exchanged glances. Sir, this is just protocol. We need to get her medical attention and figure out what's going on. Elijah exhaled sharply, nodding. He stepped off the train, every eye on him, every whispered word like a blade against his skin, and somehow he knew this was only the beginning. The moment Elijah stood to offer his seat, his gesture was clear, as was the distance he maintained afterward. When the officer reviewed the video, his expression softened slightly, and he handed the phone to his partner. This doesn't show any contact between him and the woman, he admitted. The taller officer frowned, turning toward the pregnant woman. Ma'am, are you absolutely sure it was him? Her face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. I don't know, she stammered. I felt dizzy and he was right there. I just assumed. Relief and frustration battled within Elijah. You assumed? His voice wavered, but the injustice was sharp. You've got half this platform thinking I'm some kind of criminal because you assumed? The crowd's whispers shifted, uncertainty rippling through them. Some people looked embarrassed, others clung stubbornly to their suspicions. Just as things seemed to settle, a paramedic spoke up. Her blood pressure is dangerously low. That could explain the dizziness and confusion. We need to take her to the hospital for further tests. The officers nodded, then turned back to Elijah. We're not detaining you, the taller officer said, his tone far from apologetic, but we'll need to file a report. Stay nearby in case we need more information. Elijah's jaw tightened. Fine, do what you have to do. As the paramedics wheeled the woman away and the crowd dispersed, Elijah remained on the platform, shaken but not broken. The damage was already done. The fight for his dignity wasn't over yet. He leaned against a steel pillar as the station emptied, a few lingering glances still thrown his way. His mind raced, every fiber of his being screaming at the injustice. How quickly assumptions had painted him as the villain. The teenage girl who had defended him earlier stood nearby, scrolling through her phone. When she looked up and caught his eye, she offered a small, apologetic smile. Thanks for speaking up, Elijah said, his voice strained but sincere. She shrugged. It's just messed up how everyone jumped on you like that. People always assume the worst for no reason. Her words lingered in the air. No reason. Elijah knew better. It wasn't no reason. One of the officers approached again, his tone more measured this time. Listen, we reviewed the security footage. It backs up what you said. You didn't do anything wrong. You're free to go. Elijah let out a sharp exhale, relief flooding through him. I told you that from the start, he said, unable to keep the edge out of his voice. The officer shifted uncomfortably. Yeah, well, we had to be thorough. You know how it is. Elijah stared at him. Do I? Or are you just excusing what happened here? Before the officer could respond, the paramedics returned. She's stabilized, one of them reported. Her dizziness was caused by a severe drop in blood pressure. It had nothing to do with anyone on the train. It could have happened anywhere. The officer nodded. Looks like this was all a big misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. The word felt too light for the weight of what had just happened. A misunderstanding? Elijah repeated, his tone icy. Do you have any idea what it's like to have a whole train of people look at you like you're a criminal? To hear them whisper, point, assume? The officer looked down, scratching the back of his neck. "Look, I get it, but it's over now. You can go." Elijah let out a bitter laugh. "It's over for you. For me, this will stick in my mind every time I get on a train, every time someone looks at me sideways. You don't get to tell me it's over." The officer didn't respond. After a moment, he walked away. The teenage girl stepped forward again, holding up her phone. "I posted the video," she said softly. "The whole thing. People need to see what really happened." Elijah blinked. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," she replied. "Maybe this will make someone think twice next time." Elijah nodded, appreciating her gesture, even if he wasn't sure it would change anything. As he finally made his way out of the station, his phone buzzed. It was his sister, asking if he was still coming to her birthday dinner. He hesitated before responding. The weight of the evening pressed on him, but he wouldn't let it overshadow the one bright spot in his day. "I'm on my way," he texted back. Later that evening, he sat at his sister's dining table, laughter and the clinking of glasses filling the room. His little sister beamed as she blew out her candles, and for a moment, warmth eased the tension knotted in his chest. But his mind kept circling back to the events of the day, the way assumptions could snowball, how quickly kindness could be twisted into suspicion, and the fragility of trust among strangers. After the cake was cut and the dishes cleared, Elijah stepped onto the balcony for a moment of quiet. His sister joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "You okay?" she asked, sensing something was off. Elijah hesitated before nodding. "Yeah, just had a rough ride home." She didn't press, but he could tell she wanted to. Finally he sighed and told her the story, every detail, from offering his seat to the accusations and the girl who had come to his defense. When he finished, she shook her head, her expression a mix of sadness and anger. "It's not fair," she said softly. "You did the right thing, and somehow you still ended up being the bad guy." Elijah nodded, staring out at the city lights. "It's not just me, though. This happens all the time. I was lucky that girl had my back. Not everyone gets that." His sister rested a hand on his shoulder. "You can't control what people assume, Eli. But you can control how you handle it. You stayed calm and stood your ground. That says a lot about who you are." He thought about her words. In the moment he hadn't felt calm, but looking back, she was right. He could have lashed out, shouted, stormed off, but he hadn't. And maybe that had made all the difference. As he stood there, a thought struck him. Kindness wasn't always easy, and it didn't always pay off the way you expected, but it mattered. Because the world was too quick to judge, too quick to assume, and someone had to break that cycle.